Hello and welcome to day 2 of our Victory Rations project. A project where my wife and I decided to try and live off World War II style rations for a month.
Today's menu consisted of black pudding, a single rasher of bacon, and last night's boiled potatoes, all fried up in a tiny amount of lard. Lunch was a sandwich made with national loaf, filled with grated cheese and carrot, a slice of Ovaltine cake, and an apple. Dinner was vegetable oatmeal goulash all washed down with as many cups of tea as we can squeeze out of the daily ration. Very brown food, but surprisingly tasty and filling. Right, that's the diet out of the way. Now on with today's episode of What's Going On the 9th of April 1945.
Now then, this video comes with a warning. It features images and stories of two men with chiselled jaws, magnificent moustaches, and balls the size of Bournemouth. You have been warned.
A common myth that we like to tell ourselves in Britain is that we stood alone against Nazism in 1940. While there is an element of truth in that, in reality we had the British Empire behind us, all of whom willingly answered the call. Australia and New Zealand did sterling work kicking the crap out of Rommel in North Africa. South Africa rolled all over the Vichy French in Madagascar. Canada had a whole beach to themselves on D-Day and finished the war with something like the 6th largest navy in the world. An often forgotten part of the British Empire effort is that of the Indian Army, particularly where the war in Europe is concerned. At war's end they numbered something like 2.5 million men, and all of them were volunteers. That makes them the largest volunteer army in history. They fought everywhere: North Africa, East Africa, the Mediterranean, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Malaya, Hong Kong, and Singapore. For today's entry in the diary, we have not one but two amazing stories of heroism by Indian Army soldiers, both of whom were awarded the Victoria Cross. As the Allies pushed further into northern Italy, they faced major obstacles in the form of the Senio River. If they could cross the Senio River, then they'd be in the Po Valley and the German army would have nowhere left to go. Defended river crossings are always horrendous, and what the Allies needed were people whose whole way of life for centuries has been a series of border disputes. Enter stage left, Namdao Jadhav, a 23-year-old sepoy in the 5th Maratha Light Infantry, with impeccable chisel jaw and cheekbones that are clearly bulletproof. Jadhav's company was assaulting the east bank of the Senio River just north of San Petito. The river was only 15 feet wide and 4 feet deep, but its flood banks had been built up to 35 feet high either side, and were crisscrossed with German defences, bunkers, barbed wire, and a minefield. As company runner, Jadhav was with his company commander as they waded through the river, heading for the west bank. As they reached the west bank, they came under heavy fire from at least 3 machine guns on the east bank. The withering fire wounded the company commander, 2 men, and killed everyone else. Jadhav was miraculously uninjured. I'm sure it's the cheekbones. Without thinking, he picked up one of the wounded men, waded back across the river, ran up the 35-foot bank, and through the minefield to relative safety. Not content with that, he went back and retrieved a second wounded man, and once again brought him back across the river and the minefield to safety, all the while under mortar and machine gun fire. Pissed off at seeing friends killed, he wanted revenge. Grabbing his Tommy gun and an armful of grenades, he set about silencing the machine gun posts. Running across the exposed east bank, he silenced the first machine gun with his Tommy gun, but was hit in the hand. Unable to use his Tommy gun, he threw it away. He took on a second machine gun nest with grenades and silenced it. Then he crawled back to the tip of the bank to fetch more grenades from a few friends taking cover on the reverse slope. He then took on the third and final machine gun nest and put it out of action. Having single-handedly, pun intended, silenced all the machine gun posts on the eastern bank, he stood on top of it, completely exposed to enemy mortar fire, shouting the Maharata war cry and calling the rest of the battalion forward to press the attack. For this action he was awarded the Victoria Cross, which was gazetted on the 15th of June 1945. His citation reads, "This sepoy not only saved the lives of his comrades, but his outstanding gallantry and personal bravery enabled the 2 companies to hold the riverbanks firmly, and eventually the battalion to secure a deeper bridgehead, which in turn ultimately led to the collapse of all German resistance in the area." Later he was promoted to Havildar before retiring back to India and died in 1984, aged 63. In 2017, the mayor of Lugo de Romagna unveiled a memorial dedicated to Jadhav on the eastern bank of the Senio where his action took place. Our second VC action for the 9th of April comes in the form of 31-year-old sepoy Ali Haidar of the 13th Frontier Force Rifles. He was a smidge over 5 feet tall, sported a magnificent moustache, and hailing from the city of Kohat near the Khyber Pass in modern-day Pakistan, he was ideally suited to fighting in mountains and rivers. His company was attempting to cross the Senio near Fusignano, just 2 miles or so north of where Jadhav was earning his Victoria Cross. Using small boats, they began to cross the river and came under fire from 2 machine gun posts 60 yards away. Everyone was wounded or killed except for Haidar and 2 other men. With his 2 comrades covering him as best they could, he dashed up the bank to attack one nest with grenades. Grenades crossed in mid-air as the Germans threw one back at him. The explosion sent shrapnel into his back, but he was undeterred. He stood up again and rushed the position. Being faced seemingly by an unstoppable Indian, all 5 foot of him, they threw up their arms in surrender and were taken prisoner by Haidar's comrades. The second machine gun still posed a threat, so he crawled towards it, but took bullets to the right leg and right arm. Refusing to give up, he continued crawling, threw a grenade, and then, using the last ounce of strength, somehow stood up and rushed the position. 2 Germans were wounded, and the other 2 surrendered. With the machine guns silenced, the rest of the company charged across the river to establish a bridgehead. With shrapnel in his back and bullet holes in his arms and legs, he was carried from the second position back to a dressing station for treatment, and then on to a hospital in Rome. He didn't recover fully until after the war, but was able to receive his Victoria Cross personally from the King at Buckingham Palace in October 1945. His citation reads, "The conspicuous gallantry, initiative, and determination, combined with a complete disregard for his own life, shown by this very brave sepoy in the face of heavy odds, were an example to the whole company. His heroism had saved an ugly situation which would, but for his personal bravery, have caused the battalion a large number of casualties at a critical time and seriously delayed the crossing of the river and building of a bridge. With the rapid advance which it was possible to make, the battalion captured 3 officers and 217 other ranks and gained their objectives. Ali Haidar became the only Pashtun soldier to receive the Victoria Cross. He recovered and returned to his regiment, eventually reaching the rank of Jemadar, roughly lieutenant. He later married and passed away peacefully in 1999 at his home in Pakistan at the age of 85. In April 2017, the same day that Jadhav's memorial was unveiled, a memorial was unveiled to Haidar on the banks of the Senio where his action took place. The British, and arguably the world as a whole, owe a debt of gratitude to the Indian Army. The Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army, Field Marshal Claude Auchinleck, said that the British couldn't have come through both world wars if they hadn't had the Indian Army. Even Churchill, whom many like to quote out of context regarding India, referred to the unsurpassed bravery of Indian soldiers and officers. The Indian Army received 4,000 awards in the Second World War, including 18 Victoria or George Crosses, and their effort throughout the war, particularly in Burma, shouldn't be underestimated. Thank you for watching today's episode of Victory Rations Project. If you've enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to see regular updates of what our rationing challenge entails, you can find out more by searching #Victory Rations Project or following @TimeForHomeLife on Instagram. Good night.